Hello everybody and welcome back to Satisfactory. We are back here in our Let's Play world and you can see in front of us our to-do list and we have a great deal to do today, so we are going to waste very little time. We're going to go ahead and scout out an area for our advanced steel factory. That's probably the thing we're going to be spending the most time on today, but then we're also going to play around with some of these other options. I think in particular looking at hypertubes and then also getting the space elevator unlocked. I do want to dive into Fixmas, and that'll probably be the emphasis of our next episode, or maybe the one after that. But Coffee Stain has said that there are some things that are coming as a part of Fixmas that aren't out yet. They'll be released later, and so I'm hesitant to get too far into Fixmas before that happens. But I do want to get started with it. Alright, I think I've decided on a place for our advanced steel factory. You can see our power plant there in the mist, and so then just to the left of that would be where our basic steel factory is, and our quartz factory just up on the hillside there. But this place has an abundance of iron. There are 4 pure iron veins there. There's a copper vein just over yonder up on this hill behind me. There's a limestone vein, and then there is a coal vein just south of us in the woods. And so that should give us everything we need to make our advanced steel factory. Now this is shaping up to be a pretty complex build, so we're gonna do some planning and then we'll get into the build. All right, I've gone ahead and set up a foundation for our factory here, as well as a little workstation for us to play around with. And as this is going to be the emphasis for today, I want to get into what we're going to be doing in a little more detail. Now we're going to spend most of today working on an advanced steel factory, which is going to take these inputs, 240 coal per minute, 480 iron per minute, and 180 limestone per minute, and transform them into 12 encased industrial beams, 12 motors, and 12 stators per minute. Now this is going to be a pretty complex factory, but I have started to work out a plan for what this process might look like. Now, you can see here we've got 480 iron ore, and then we are going to smelt that in 16 smelters into 480 iron ingots. We'll then mine out 240 coal and 180 limestone as well. We will then take the iron ingots and combine half of them with our 240 coal to produce 360 steel ingots using the solid steel ingot recipe. And the other half we will send into 20 constructors, 19.2 constructors, to produce 432 wire using the iron wire alternate recipe. We will also use 4 constructors to turn our 180 limestone into 60 concrete. Now we'll take those 360 steel ingots and turn them into 240 steel pipes in 12 constructors. We'll take 72 of those steel pipes along with our 60 concrete and turn them into encased industrial pipes using 3 assemblers. And we'll take the remaining steel pipes as well as our wire and turn it into 36 stators, 12 of which we'll set aside, and the other 24 of which we'll combine with 24 rotors in order to make 12 motors. Now we'll be using the steel rotor recipe, which is very nice here because it means that the stators and the rotors use the same components, so it makes it much easier to set up that section of the factory. And that will leave us with 12 stators, 12 motors, and 12 encased industrial beams. Now in order to do this, we're going to need 16 smelters, 6 foundries, 36 constructors, and 19 assemblers, which makes this by far the most complex factory we have attempted in this series. But have no fear, I'm a professional and I am sure that we can get this sorted out. Alright, I have spent far longer than I care to admit working out how we are going to construct this factory, but I think I've come up with something that is pretty intuitive, that works well, and that I really like the design and the look of. So, basically how we're going to lay this factory out is we're going to build this factory in 3 floors, and each floor represents sort of this diagonal slice of these things. So our first floor is going to contain our smelters, as well as our steel foundries and our concrete constructors. Our second floor will take our iron ingots and turn that into iron wire. It'll take our steel ingots, turn it into steel pipe, and then we will combine the steel pipe and concrete to make the encased industrial pipes. And then our third floor will contain our stator and rotor assemblers, as well as our motor assemblers. Now there is going to be one minor change to our preliminary design here, and that is we're going to be using 8 constructors to make our steel pipes instead of 12, which means we are going to have to overclock them to 150%. Fortunately, we have enough power slugs for this, so it shouldn't be a problem. Let's get into it. And with our second story all constructed, let's go ahead and set up our coal input line so that we can turn these machines on and make sure that everything is working. Alright, as we drive this path, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that I learned while building this factory. This is the first time I've sort of done a complex composite factory like this. In my previous playthroughs, my factories have all been sort of single purpose. I've never done an encased industrial beam factory in my motor factory or vice versa. It's always been one or the other. And I found that by doing this factory in this way, it was both incredibly challenging but also incredibly rewarding. I learned a lot, and you learn to think about things a little differently. I think a big part of that is just doing it differently than how I had before, but also trying to cope with these new challenges. And so I strongly encourage you guys to try that out in your next build and see what you come up with. I also ended up discovering a new way of building factory floors, and this is something that I'm sure others have done before me, but I've not seen it anywhere. And it's this sort of split level where I've got, and I do it on all three floors of this factory, where you've got your constructors, your smelters on sort of the base level of the factory, and then your assemblers and foundries, or a second set of assemblers, raised up just a little bit, sort of at like a half level there, raised up by a single foundation in order to allow for the underfed belt system, but only for a portion of the floor. I think it adds a really nice topography to the factory and really makes things look different. I also started playing around with offset foundations, and you see this in the third floor, where I actually create the foundation for my sort of three top central assemblers is actually offset by half a foundation's width from the rest using catwalks, which allows me to sort of squeeze more of them into a smaller space. While we're on the topic, I would love to hear what building tips you guys have or how to approach some of these interesting challenges. Anything you guys have discovered in your own playthrough or seen others do that you think is really neat and would like to sort of share with the community. So leave a comment down below with your favorite building tips. And that is our advanced steel factory all done and dusted. And you can see that we have some motors and some encased industrial beams and a stator coming down the conveyor there directly in front of us. So we know that this is working. I haven't set these up at the far end yet, so right now they're all just being sunk over there, so I need to head over and set up some storage containers for them. But on this end, everything is working great. And despite being the most complex factory we've had to build so far in the series, it is actually quite simple. Let's go through it. The bottom floor is all about raw materials processing. We use 16 smelters to turn 480 iron ore into ingots. Because we only have Mark III belts, we have to do this with 2 parallel input belt lines. 240 of those ingots, along with 240 coal, are then sent to 6 smelters to produce 360 steel ingots per minute. Finally, we have a series of constructors that take 180 limestone and craft 60 concrete per minute. On our second floor, we process each ingredient through an additional step. We use 20 constructors to turn our remaining iron ingots into 432 wire using the iron wire alternate recipe. Meanwhile, we turn our steel ingots into 240 steel pipes using 8 constructors tuned to 150%. 72 of those pipes, along with our 60 concrete, are sent into 3 assemblers to produce encased industrial beams using the encased industrial pipe alternate recipe. The remaining steel pipes are then sent upstairs to provide for our stator and rotor assemblers. 8 assemblers produce 36 stators, while 5 more produce 24 rotors. The rotors, along with 24 of the stators, are then sent to the middle section to be combined into motors. Finally, the 12 motors, 12 remaining stators, and 12 encased industrial beams are sent down to the truck station for shipping. And with our steel factory all complete, I think it's time we wrap this. I think we can have it done in about 3, 2, 1, and done. All right, and with our steel factory all complete, we've checked that off our list. You can see we have quite a lot more to do, and I've even added a few since our last episode. I think our next step is going to be to take a look at researching hypertubes and working on a small network. And we'll probably finish up today by setting up our space elevator and starting to work on the parts we'll need to unlock tiers 4 and 5. All right, now that we have an encased industrial beam factory, we have everything we need to complete our hypertubes milestone. So let's get that sent away and then take a look at building a space elevator. Now, the previous location we had our space elevator set up is now occupied by a Caterium plant. So we're going to go ahead and build a temporary location. I think I'm working on a plan for where I want to set up sort of a permanent or a more permanent place for the space elevator. But for the purpose of getting through this tier, we're just going to set this up real quickly right here. And then we're going to set up a couple of assemblers to manufacture the parts that we need in order to unlock the next tier. And then we'll work on doing a more permanent setup once we start to establish our mega base here in the coming days. All right, let's take a look at the project parts we're going to need to take care of this tier. Looks like to unlock tiers 5 and 6, we're going to need 500 smart plating. That's no problem. We actually already have a smart plating factory set up and loads already sort of stockpiled. Building a versatile framework and automated wiring factoring is definitely something we could do, although I'm hesitant to get too far into that because we don't need these parts in large numbers for a while. I think that's definitely something we're gonna want to do before we move on to the next tier. But as I'm keen to get these next tiers unlocked, I think we're gonna do is just sort of a temporary setup for these. So let's take a look at what we need there. Set up a couple of assemblers, one for each of those. So if we take a look at the versatile framework, it looks like that's going to take steel beams and modular frames, and we'll produce 5 a minute. I think we needed 500. Yeah, we need 500 of those, and so that should take about 100 minutes, an hour and a half. That's not terrible. And it looks like we should have plenty of materials for that. As far as our automated wiring goes, 50 cable per minute, 2.5 stators per minute. So we may need to wait on some stators because our steel factory just kicked off, but we should be there pretty soon, and we only need 100. So I think we should be okay. I think we probably have 100 stators by now. I mean, that's 10 minutes, right? And so we can go ahead and get those stockpiles. All right, how we're going to do this temporary setup is just to take some storage containers and feed them into a set of assemblers, and then have those set of assemblers place the output into more storage containers so that once we have things all set and ready, we could have these just feed into the space elevator directly, but I like the idea of sort of making sure that we have the right quantity and not sort of just expecting everything to go to plan. That feels kind of like a cartoon villain way of doing things, is to not check your work. All right, for our versatile frameworks, we're going to need about 250 modular frames and about 3,000 steel beams. So we can go ahead and place those in. You can see I've placed the modular frames in, and we've got our last batch of steel beams. Oh, that's 3,000 right there. Is that right? 3,000. Yeah, 3,000. All right. So then for our automated wiring, let's see, we're going to need 100 automated wiring. That's 100 stators, and we're gonna need about 2,000 cables. So let's go ahead and get those set up. And last but not least, we can just sort of hook these machines up, and they should start producing soon. And then here in about an hour and a half, we'll be able to send off our project parts. We'll probably wait to do that until the start of our next episode, but I did want to get that set up and underway. All right, I'd like to round out today by taking a look at the MAM and at some of the technologies that we've talked about but haven't really explored yet, in particular in the sulfur and quartz tree. Now for sulfur, we don't have very much of this, but by unlocking scanning, we should be able to find some pretty quick. So let's take a quick scan and see how far away that is. So some to the east, about 1,400 and 1,450 meters, and that's the nearest. So yeah, we're gonna have to hike over there. That shouldn't be too far beyond our other factories over there. Probably in this about the same distance as our advanced steel factory. But then the next nearest vein is another 1,500 meters beyond that. So it shouldn't be too bad. All right, next I wanted to take a look at quartz, and you can see we need crystal oscillators to research signal technologies. Fortunately, we have a bunch of those. I needed to craft up a bunch of those by hand in order to build the signs in our factories for various lights that we're using over there. But that has unlocked a couple of new things. We've got the Explorer as well as frequency mapping. So it looks like we need some beacons and some modular frames. We can get those real quick. All right, I went ahead and grabbed our modular frames, so let's go ahead and start researching the Explorer. All right, the Explorer is pretty similar to the Tractor in most respects. It's quite a bit faster, but uses a bit more fuel as well. Same size inventory. Notably, though, it's great for traversing rough terrain. It can drive up almost any sloped surface in the game. So it's great for getting around the map or exploring or heading out to set up a new outpost factory. All right, and it looks like our map is all finished up as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. You can see here that we have now an in-game map that shows us our world. You can see our truck and our various truck stations at work. You can see we've got our sort of power plant over there. Let's see what we can do. Okay, so we can change our beacons. If we don't have any beacons set up right now, but we can play with those. We can decide whether to show various things on our compass and on our map, which is cool. So yeah, this will be really helpful, particularly as we start to explore a little more and as we start to map out how our factories are all sort of going to fit together and do things like that. Let me test something here. If we do a quick ping, aha! So if you open while they're active on the compass, you can see where they're at. That is awesome. I love that. I didn't know about that. All right, and taking a look at our to-do list, we have made some great progress today. We've knocked out 5 items of our 12, which is awesome. And so I think in between our next episodes, now that we have the Explorer and map, I'm going to do some exploring, find some more power slugs and hard drives. And then in our next episode, we're going to dive into tiers 5 and 6, as well as taking a look at Fixmas. I think those are our 2 major goals for our next episode. And that will do it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. Leave a like if you have, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. I'll see you soon. Have an efficient day.